Welcome. My name is Kate Harmon. I'm the Director of Cross-Campus Engagement for the Lundquist Center for Entrepreneurship. And today on our Getting Ahead series, I'm very excited to feature Sadie Lincoln. Sadie is the founder and CEO of Bar 3. Sadie, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I thought we would start by having you share a little bit of background about your kind of college years and take us through right before you ended up founding Bar 3. What were you hoping to do in college in terms of a career?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, so go Ducks. I'm forever a Duck. And I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18, and I enrolled in Santa Monica City College at that time, transferred into UCLA. And at UCLA, I was a sociology major. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was just really open-minded and curious about lots of different subjects. And one of the things that I fell in love with was fitness at our John Wooden Center, the recreation center, and specifically teaching group exercise classes. So that really was the seed of my career. I didn't know it at the time. I just followed my passion, and I was very passionate about it. I had so much fun. And I ended up running the fitness instructor training program at UCLA. So I became involved with the rec center. And because of that, I was a part of NERSA, which is a International Recreation Association for college campuses. And I received a graduate assistantship, full ride to go to the College of William and Mary for grad school to start their fitness and group fitness training program on campus. And that led me to, and I got my master's in higher ed administration with the thought that I would run college rec programming as a career. And I ended up getting my first job out of grad school was with a fitness chain, 24-Hour Fitness, which allowed me, to be candid, to move to San Francisco, which is the city I wanted to live in. It really didn't have as much to do about my career as it did. I really wanted to live in San Francisco. But little did I know I would end up working there for 10 years. And then that journey led me to wanting to open my own concept, which is Bar 3.
That's great. So let's talk about, again, you're not necessarily a Duck, but we claim you because you grew up in Eugene, and you had a really unique childhood. You were surrounded with a lot of strong entrepreneurial women. Can you share a little bit about your childhood in Eugene and how really your foundational core values kind of were shaped by the women around you?
Yeah, I grew up, I would say, lower middle class. At times we had food stamps, so we went kind of in and out. But I never felt poor because I had such a rich home life. My mom was part of a group of friends who they are still best friends to this day. They were all single moms, and they essentially raised us kids together. Collaboratively. We didn't all live in the same home. We rented mostly, and we would all live sort of near each other, and they shared responsibilities as single mothers raising us kids. And they ended up starting what was at the time What's Happening, which they changed the name years into the Eugene Weekly, which is still the weekly newspaper in Eugene. So my mom and her dear friends started that in our living room. We all, as kids, witnessed them pull it together. And they did it really out of a passion for alternative news and entertainment and the arts and their values. So I'm certain that had some kind of imprinting on me as I made choices throughout my life.
That's great. Well, so you had this fascination and deep experience in the fitness industry, and as you mentioned, you worked for several years at 24-Hour Fitness. Take us through, if you will, how you came up for the concept for Bar 3. Was it, one of those aha moments, or was this something that sort of you saw over time that needed to be developed in the fitness industry?
Yeah, I was at 24 Hour Fitness for 10 years, and I had the opportunity to work directly for the founder and at the time CEO. He has since left. And he was very entrepreneurial. So I learned so much about the business, and I had so many amazing moments to learn what it is to scale a business, what the fitness industry is, and how it's working. And one of the things that always confused me, I had two things that confused me that I wondered about a lot. And one of them was, as fitness is rising, and it literally upper right-hand corner, year after year, the industry has grown to this day since 1980, when it basically arrived as a mainstream product and service. Tremendous growth, and our sales were incredible. But at the same time, we would have all these consultant firms come in and give us amazing data on the health and well-being of our world. And here in the United States, for example, obesity has doubled since 1980. Depression, body image issues, lifestyle issues like diabetes 2, which is, if you're exercising and you're healthy, you're less likely to have diabetes 2, on the rise. Our health is on a serious decline as our industry was rising. And that was always an interesting curiosity for me. Even more, so I had that in the background, but even more importantly for me, I always felt disconnected in the gym environment on a couple levels. For one, the more I bought into the ideals that we sold at 24 Hour Fitness, and it's nothing wrong with 24 Hour Fitness, and there's nothing wrong with fitness. We know it works. When you study it in a lab, fitness works. It's good for you. But what we sold, it was an after picture. That if you join this gym and you do these things in this order, you will lose weight, you will be better than you are today. And that mindset of selling fitness because we're not enough and we need to shape up, like literally change our bodies to be worthy, to be successful, to be more healthy, to be attractive, to belong, right? I bought into all that and personally tried it. And I would shame spiral over and over again. I had chronic pain in my body. I felt heavier in body and in spirit, low self-esteem. And I was at the center and the face of fitness. I was teaching a lot of classes. And so I realized I did have an aha moment when I was pregnant, when I started to modify moves at home and move in a more kind of intimate, connected way that was empowering versus me doing the hardest moves all the time because they would get me there quicker. When I started to move in a way that was more intuitive and empowering, I rebuilt a relationship with fitness. And I had an aha that maybe I wasn't failing fitness, maybe fitness was failing me. That the way we were going about fitness, that our relationship with fitness was broken. Not that fitness is broken. We're just going about it a slightly wrong way, at least for me. And a big part of that was the big box idea, where you come into a giant gym. It didn't feel community centric. It didn't feel intimate and connected. I didn't have as much permission to move in a way that I needed to move. It was more kind of a machine. And I started to observe the proliferation of boutique fitness. That was back when yoga was starting to really take hold, and Pilates studios and some early bar concepts. And I witnessed the feeling of being in a smaller group environment that really filled that need for me to have community and connection. And that is what led us to decide, you know what, let's break off and try this on our own, try something to kind of scratch our own itch, basically.
That's awesome. Do you remember how long was it between when you really started to investigate this before you launched? Was it overnight, or kind of give us a little bit of, when did you feel safe to sort of, I guess, leave your day job to launch Barkery?
Well, Chris and I, my husband is co-founder. We were just entrepreneurial in general. I mean, for years we were putting together business plans, all kinds of things, from nail salons to pizza to plant watering business. I mean, we had all these kooky business ideas. So I really count that as part of our research because we learned, it starts with the P&L, right? Like we knew how to run the numbers and we knew how to do the research and to risk even thinking about starting our own thing. Once we landed on, let's do something that we're good at. I've been teaching group exercise forever, and this is a huge gap in the industry that we can fill. Then sort of the pieces fell into place. So it happened pretty quick. I would say within 9 months, we had our full business plan written. We were well on our way. And then it just all kind of worked out after that. Probably 18 months later, we opened our first studio.
That's great. Do you remember like what time period, or did you actually figure out like, this is going to work? And, what did you have? Was there a certain like opening your sixth studio, or what was that look like when you're like, all right, this is going to be big?
Once we opened Bar 3?
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that going in. We did the numbers. I would take yoga classes and I would count all the people and figure out, oh my gosh, their rent has got to be about this. They pay their instructor. They have fixed expenses. We knew the model. And then on top of it, we had a unique style of teaching that I was excited about. So we really went in educated that way. And then we opened in August of 2008, which you all know was like the biggest recession that we'd ever experienced. It was a tough time. And yet there was so much interest. In my very first class, 12 people came and paid. And I just knew in that moment we were on to something. We put a tab up on our website that said grow with us, and it got instant interest. Because I think, again, it was a sign of the times. People were out of their jobs or rethinking their lives and what really mattered. And they were starting to look to a new opportunity. And ironically, franchising really took off for us because there were so many people that were like kind of disenchanted with working for bigger organizations, and they wanted to work for themselves.
That's great. I know that you recently changed your title from CEO, Chief Executive Officer, to Chief Energy Officer, and I know that this is kind of reflective of your values. Can you explain a little bit why you feel more, I guess, comfortable being known as sort of Chief Energy Officer?
I'm not sure if you read that somewhere, but I've always referred to myself as Chief Energy Officer. I've never, ever referred to myself as Chief Executive Officer because it just didn't feel like me. On my card, my business card, I don't even have business cards, but if I did have a business card, people would probably think of me as an executive officer because that's my title. I've reframed it for myself because it's a big kind of philosophical conversation for me, and around why there aren't more women that are CEOs. And similar to the fitness industry, I don't think that it's our fault. I don't think it's women's fault that we haven't made it, or that there's something that there's a deficit with us. And I think it's really interesting that we put so much emphasis on taking down barriers so more women can land into that traditional legacy-based CEO role. So we're all about like taking down the barriers, but we're still not seeing enough women as CEOs. And so how I look at it is maybe the role is broken. That maybe the way we're looking at Chief Executive Officer isn't resonating for badass women who want to run their own organization. That there are many ways to run your organization, that there is not one CEO. And when you look at all CEOs across the board, you see that they run their organizations very differently. And I know that because I've done my research, because I felt like such an imposter. And so that's why my form of activism is to keep the title, because even though I may not be running my organization as legacy would have it, I still think that I can hold that title. And that perhaps if more people like me do that, then more women will follow me, right? And I do run my company more through intuition. through relationship, through community, collaboration, collective wisdom. I mean, these are all I nurture. I'm very much about that, the heart of the organization. And I lead that way with pride. And I'm not super strong at running an executive meeting. Oh, well, I'm still doing okay, you know? And so I have other people that do that. And that's why I just changed it to energy officer, because I thought that was a better descriptor.
I love it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And let's kind of follow up with that, because I know you're 100% owner operated, women owned company. All of your 140 plus studios around the world are owned by women. And you do a lot, as you mentioned, you're really concerned and nurture your community. So I'm curious, like, what kind of things can you share with us, like, that you have found successful in nurturing sort of a female community, or to help women feel more empowered?
Yeah. One thing I want to note on that too, that I think is important, is it's not just about women. It's about feminine. I think everybody has feminine energy and masculine energy. It's sort of like you hear of yin yang, and that we all have both, no matter how you identify. And by and large, the business world has operated in a masculine energy arena. And that's fine. That works. It's important, you know, and like what you would consider masculine energy is kind of like measuring things by a KPI, by a report. I have a lot of masculine energy, like being on this call, being on stages, like kind of getting out in the world and demonstrating success in more of an external way is considered masculine energy. Like we measure our success by how many locations do you have? You know, that's how we measure success. But there's a whole nother way to measure success that has more feminine energy that we all hold both. And that's been really exciting for us as an organization to prove. And yes, we are all women run, because that's predominantly our client is women. And that's where we find our owners, because we are an inside out company. A lot of franchise organizations, it's not owner operated, meaning you can franchise but not run it. You could hire a manager. We want you to have skin in the game and run it and be the face of it. So we tend towards women. I think what we have all discovered as an organization is that we figured out how to build a company that requires us to take care of our clients and our community, and to live by our values to have a strong profit margin. So we started with culture. We started with a unbridled like focus and optimism around the idea that if you take care of every single client who walks in the door and you truly help her balance her body and become empowered from within, that will be a remarkable service, and she will go out and remark on it and bring other people in, right? And we've stayed true to that and our core values. And we're like, the first thing we do in every single meeting is, before we go through our strategic priorities and our goals for the month, we always go over what is our vision, what is our mission, and what are our values. That's how we call it our strategic house. We lead with that. Then we measure the success. Then we look at our goals. Then we look at our priorities. So I think that model has worked really well for us. And it's kind of, it's something we're proud of.
Absolutely. And I know from our earlier conversation, like you also said, like how you allow women to feel comfortable failing. Like that's part of your culture in terms of feeling safe to fail.
So important. It's so important. Unfortunately, the truth is, women have we are set up to need to have higher standards to be seen, to be heard, and to succeed. And so we have been conditioned to think that we need to be perfect, that we always need to make the grade, or we won't be seen, we won't be heard, and we won't get the opportunity to sit around the boardroom table. And that is such a disservice, because where we grow is when we're allowed to fail. And that actually prevents us from growing and achieving in the world. And so as an organization, we have been very conscious about creating proactively safe space to fail. And one very tactical example of that is when we come in for our quarterly executive review of the previous quarter, we lead with our fails. So we each go around the table and we share, this is where I personally struggled and fell this last quarter. It was maybe in how I managed someone. It was maybe something really huge, like missing my numbers. It could be, sometimes we'll add personal stuff, like I failed balancing my role as a CEO and being a mother. I just feel like I really took my eye off the ball when it came to being a mom. We'll talk about those things. And the important thing is not to just talk about the failure, but what did I learn in that moment? Why is it important to even bring this up? And by doing that, what happened kind of automatically for us as an organization is all of a sudden we started to innovate again. Because we learned so much from those failures, and we had kind of a culture of perfection there for a while, and everybody was shut down and we weren't problem solving. So yeah, I think it's good no matter who you are to practice failing out loud, because we're all, especially anyone on this call, we're all high performers. If you're in the school business, you're a high performer, right?
Absolutely. And it's a learning opportunity. It's not, it's something that, and anyone, everyone feels, and you're always learning. So that's a good thing. Let's talk a little bit. You mentioned earlier that you started Bar 3 during the 2008 recession, and really through tenacity, you've been able to grow the company. You have added new products, so you were one of the early fitness companies to get online. Mm-hmm. You now have experiences with mindful retreats that you're offering. I'm curious, like, how in this particular economic climate that Bar 3 is innovating. Do you see opportunities to innovate during this kind of economic downturn?
Yes, resounding yes. Here's the silver lining. When we have constraints, we create. There is a healthy tension between clear constraints and creation. And I have witnessed this now 2 cycles. This cycle is far more exciting than when we opened in 2008. Exciting. It's been real exciting. 2/3 of our revenue was shut off overnight, right? We had to close 100% of our studios. And what that did as a leadership team is we had clear constraints. And thank goodness we had an omni-channel approach to delivering and distributing our product. We have retail, and we have our online subscription business, and we are franchised. So what we did in that moment, and this was a real turning point for us, is we let go of being so precious with our franchisees, and we let go of a lot of their rules, and we allowed them to innovate. And we learned from their success and their failures quickly as an organization. And because we did that, we all innovated real quick. So now we are at about 55% of our revenue in studios, because our owners have hustled and I hate that word. I'm sorry. Omit that word. Strike from the record. But they got out there and did Zoom live stream classes in such an incredible, intimate way in their homes with their kids and their dogs and their cats and the doors slamming. And guess what? Our clients love it, because we're all in it together. It was not a perfect product by any means, but because we had built such a strong community and culture, our clients are supporting our owners, and they're still paying. And we have an online program that now we're able to, that we've had since 2011, that we were able to continue to iterate and grow. And then our retail has been flying off the shelf, which, because we sell props, and everybody wants to wear yoga pants right now. So that's just kind of lucky. Yeah, I think the big lesson in business right now that we're all talking about is digital is here to stay. The omni-channel is very important. and how we start to look at business is forever changed.
That's
Forever
wonderful.
changed.
I'm glad to hear everything is going awesome.
Well, I would not say everything's going awesome.
Well, you're learning and being able
We're learning.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm curious, as you look over, this amazing company, what you've built, are there any like one or two things that you can point to that say like you're particularly proud of that really was emblematic of what you wanted for Bar 3? I mean, is it numbers? Is it the community you built? What might what are you mostly proud of?
100% not the numbers. I think the numbers are because we have built an organization that is not dependent on me and my values. We have such strong core values, and how we define a core value is it's really how we attract our team and who we hire. And then because of that, that's also our client that we attract. How we define a core value is this is something that's already inherently in the person. It's not something they're working towards. It's not something any of us are working towards. It's already who we are. And we're really clear on those core values. It's give generously, everybody matters, committed to real. We have 6 very specific core values that we love of learning, like growth mindset. We have, these values that guide our company. And we are willing to take a financial hit to uphold these values. That's the other way we define it. And it's also how we weed people out of the organization. If it's not a natural fit, that's okay. It's just that it's not going to be a good fit here. And because we have those core values, and because we have a vision to redefine what success in fitness means, a clear call to action to change conditioning so that we're not conditioned to think that we're not enough and we need fitness to be enough, that instead our future generations are going to be born into a world, hopefully if we do our job, where they're like, wow, my body is amazing as it is. I'm going to exercise so I feel even better. Because we all kind of rally around that. I could leave Bar 3 today and know that that will keep going, because the actual modeling and how we orient our financials and everything are around that to be successful. I have confidence that it'll be a legacy-based company versus just something that we could sell real quick and walk away from and, hope that it survived.
That's great to hear. As you look at your future, is there anything else that you're really like passionate that you might consider, going into, or you have an interest in sort of developing further, either Bar 3 or separate industries?
I have a passion I would like to see more women of color in the fitness and wellness space. I'd like to see that for various reasons. One thing I'm very self-aware of and vulnerable about is that I'm a white affluent woman in wellness, and that is predominantly what you see. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that is good for any of us. And I don't think until we have more leaders of color and that we all look at how do we empower that in our communities, that landscape, once we have leaders, once we raise diverse leaders, then we'll have diverse client base. And I think as I start to look at my future, I hope to be able to support people that way. And I don't know what that means yet, but I know that that's something I'm really passionate about. And I've been thinking a lot about. Same thing with economic diversity, making sure that there's more accessible, high quality fitness for marginalized communities. I grew up dirt poor. My mom was single. I know what that's like. And she needed community. She needed fitness. And luckily had it because she had her group of friends and they kind of figured that out together. But I know that really buoyed her. I think eventually I'll go into that arena a little more as well. We just hired a COO who is phenomenal, and he's really taken the charge in operating and leading Bar 3. So I'll have a little more time to work on those kind of two areas.
That's great to hear. My final question then for you, as for students who may be interested in following a similar entrepreneurial career path as your own, any kind of advice or tips, recommendations you have for students who are interested in starting their own business?
Number one is to trust that you have what it takes. That if you have an idea, a seed of an idea that you believe in, that is data. And that is very important data. It's like data point of one, and you are the most important data point. I think that often we stop, we don't even move to the next step because we don't believe in that one data point, right? Which is ourselves, and believing in ourselves and sitting quietly with yourself and trusting that you already have the answers. You already know. And then, of course, open your mind to learning and growing and researching and doing all the work that we learn in business. You know, we learn that in business. You know, I'm not sure we learn as much about being empowered from within in business. And it's such a key ingredient that's missing. That's the thing I always like to start with.
Sadie Lincoln is the founder and CEO of Bar 3. Sadie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
You're so welcome.